Hey everyone, welcome to the Cannabis Technologist webcast. I'm Rob Neely, your host, and today we've got the founder of DeepCell named Kelly Ogilvie. How are you doing today, Kelly?
I'm doing great. I'm here in sunny Palm Springs today.
That's nice. So the fiery ball in the sky we refer to as the sun, is that coming out in Seattle, or is it kind of gone for the year?
You know, one of the best-kept secrets in the Northwest is how beautiful the summers are in Seattle. It is overcast in the winter and the fall, but it's a fantastic spring and summer. So we try and not let that secret out. Yeah,
well, I tell friends and family when I was there, September is the best time to come to Seattle. It'll knock your socks off. Well, that's great to hear. Kelly is a true entrepreneur at heart. He's founded multiple companies in biotech, software, social media marketing, and we're here to talk about your latest adventure, DeepCell. As we had spoken, DeepCell is a technology development firm providing products and technologies, and then licensing them for cannabis and food ingredients. So in its simplest terms, you guys sell licensing for your technology and the brand. I know your signature product line is the Ruby Cannabis Infused Sugar. Then we've got the Sapphire Cannabis Infused Salt, as well as Emerald CBD Infused Sugar. Are those kind of the signature product lines going on right now?
They are, but the one major change we've made over the past maybe 2 weeks was we've unified the brand now. And so now it is the Ruby Infused Organic Cannabis Sugar. It's now the Ruby Infused Himalayan Salt and the Ruby Infused CBD Sugar. So we've just unified all of those products under one big brand umbrella, and that's Ruby. And we did that because we saw a unique opportunity to have a crossover brand that was both regulated THC and slightly less regulated to not regulated CBD products. And we wanted to have that crossover appeal for a national push at some point. And so those plans are bearing fruit today. We're here in California signing a landmark agreement for the production and distribution of the products in California. So now the Sapphire and Emerald brands have sort of sloughed away, and now it's just strictly Ruby for now.
Sure, and I would think that would provide clarity in a confusing market as it already is. Now, a lot of this got started, the impetus really was it the crystal fusion technology that allows you to build those products? Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct, yeah. So the crystal fusion process is really foundational in the sense that we developed the technology. Really, it's a method of crystal formation and growth, and that's how we essentially trap the cannabinoids within crystal structures themselves. We filed patents in 2016, and we received the patents from the U.S. Patent Office in July and August of this year. So it happened relatively quickly, and what it does is it really validates and protects the method by which we're able to produce these high-quality products. And so there's no binders or additives in any of the sugar or the salt products. It's strictly two ingredients. One is the organic sugar or Himalayan salt, and then the cannabinoids that are mechanically fused within those crystal structures themselves.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. So what I want to do with this talk, Kelly, is to talk about some of this incredible innovation you guys are doing, and also I want to reflect on what it's like to be a founder in the cannabis industry, to run a company and talk a little bit about the challenges of the space in general.
I think the unique challenge, though, is because every state has its own unique set of regulations, laws, expectations, compliance rules, et cetera. We have to find the sort of the circuitous and path of least resistance for our water to flow, in which in this case it's our intellectual property or our licensing model. And so we haven't had much challenge thus far in the states we've been doing deals in. That doesn't mean that things couldn't rapidly change. And so for us, while we don't have capital risk in the form of property, plant, or equipment, we don't have market risk in terms of do cannabis products sell? They certainly do. The real risk that we face as a company is regulatory risk. And so an ever-present risk we face is we keep our eyes on, not the DEA, we're watching the IRS. If the IRS decides at some point that you're a company and you derive revenues from cannabis-facing companies, if X% of your revenue comes from those activities, you're therefore considered a cannabis company. Therein lies a way in which we could be essentially materially harmed by federal regulation. And so we've been keeping a close eye on that and sort of thinking about the way in which the federal conversation is evolving around cannabis. On a state-by-state basis, the states have been incredibly friendly in trying to foster innovation, because what's happening is these industries are creating a windfall of tax revenues that are filling everything from basic services to infrastructure, to education, to public safety, to prevention services, to medical things. So the states are very, I think, bullish on trying to foster a compliant, safe industry, while the federal government has taken a much different tact and approach, especially within this administration, on cannabis.
That's so interesting you say that, because you are so uniquely positioned to see both sides of the fence. If I can reveal, you used to be a senior consultant for Governor Jay Inslee in Washington. And so you've seen a bit of policy making firsthand, have you not?
I have. I was part of the group setting policies for industry.
Yeah. And so, what knowledge would you impart on that front in terms of what should cannabis owners or entrepreneurs know of or be aware of when it comes to government policy? It sounds like from what you're saying that on a federal level, that's where it's best to be aware of the changes that happen, because on a state level, it tends to favor the industry.
Yeah, I would say, I think, having had the benefit of being both on the public and private side now, the one thing I realize now is the regulators, they're just people, and they're trying to do the right thing. And at times they fail because of ignorance or lack of information. And therein lies, I think, the unique opportunity for cannabis operators is actually interacting with their politicians and specifically with the regulators at the liquor control or cannabis boards or the Department of Agriculture or Department of Health, whoever regulates their specific industry. Having a conversation with those regulators, you have no idea how far that goes, because these regulators, they're ignorant, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. They just don't have the information that we have. And by educating them in a way that is bright and transparent and trying to help them do their jobs better, it really goes a long way in getting regulations where they should be. Because regulators, you got to remember, they're hammers and everything looks like nails. And so if you can help them figure out where to nail and how to hit the nail on the head, that's how you move things in the right direction. The regulators are never going to go away, right? They are going to be part and parcel of this industry for years to come. It's having relationships that are established and channels of communication where you can begin to tip things back towards the quote-unquote right direction makes all the difference in the world. I mean, marginal changes can have massive impacts down the road.
Okay. So in a sense, it's from the ground up. It's not grassroots, but it's by the people, for the people sort of thing.
And you know what? That is uniquely cannabis, isn't it? I mean, that's what's happening in these states. Is it's not the federal government. It's not politicians. It's people. People. The fact that cannabis is legal in California, that was done by the people. That was not done by politicians. That was the people wanting that thing. And so, I mean, this is uniquely American. And so therein lies, I think, part of the culture of this industry is of the people. And I think the politicians are listening. They really are. But a lot of people just aren't talking. I think there's fear because this has been in the shadows for so long of, if I stick my head up, I'm going to get hammered down. The reality is if people are compliant and they're trying to do the right thing, they're not going to get hammered down. The politicians and regulators, they're trying to listen. At least the ones I've worked with, they're trying to do the right thing.
Okay. Interesting. Well, let's segue to microfluidics and the R&D you guys are doing in this space and what's on the horizon for Deep Cell.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I can sort of talk off the cuff about what our sort of philosophy is from a technology perspective and then go into microfluidics.
Yeah.
So we see there being a tremendous opportunity on technology transfer from different industries into cannabis. And so that means expertise from biology, biological manufacturing, so fermentation, expertise in chemistry. So you're seeing that today in this booming industry of extracts and concentrates. And now that there's knowledge transfer from the chemistry industry into cannabis, you're seeing much safer, more pure products. You're seeing things called live resins versus cured resins. You're seeing all kinds of an evolution in the state of the art because of the knowledge transfer from different industries into cannabis. And so part of our thinking and our design philosophy and our technology development philosophy is how do we bring in existing knowledge or sort of domain expertise into this industry to move this industry forward. And so one area that we talked about a second ago is microfluidics. What is microfluidics? Microfluidics, it's the physics of moving liquids at a really small scale. And the best example I could give of this is if you've seen the movie A Bug's Life, the little bug who's the main character, he goes to a bug tender. He's like a bartender for bugs. And he gets a drink, and the bug tender hands him a ball of water and a straw. And he takes the ball of water, punches the straw into the little droplet, and sucks the drop of water through the straw and hands the straw back. And I think that's genius because it's really demonstrating that at the really small scale, the physics of liquids totally changes. And so a little drop of water behaves totally different than a cup of water. And so being able to understand how to manipulate and understand the physics of little droplets of water where surface tension totally dominates, that is something that I think will be big for the future of microdosing in cannabis, and here's why. You and I have talked prior to this interview about, just for a moment, about how, strains of cannabis, essentially what they are, they're just representations or proxies for the profile of cannabinoids in that particular strain. And those strains give you effects of uplifting or tired or lethargic or creative or focused. These are all combinations of the synergy of these different cannabinoids working together on the body and the brain. Well, with microfluidics, you can sort of remove the need for strains and begin to understand and microdose these compounds to have specificity and predictability around what experience you want. So maybe someday you're going to have little droplets of THC on a microchip moving with droplets of CBD and droplets of CBN and droplets of these different flavorings. And some combination thereof will be just the right combination for you if you just want to Netflix and chill, or if you want to go to bed, or if your back is hurting. The microfluidics future is one in which we see an ability to really give people the control and precision around dosing that has to be true for the future if medical marijuana is really going to become, I think, a therapeutic option that doctors prescribe. I know I kind of went into a little bit, but I hope that's a pretty good overview of what we're working on.
Right. Well, it's fascinating. And so are you guys developing devices for that technology that could be able to microdose on that level? So in a sense that, it could be strain agnostic in a sense. And these devices could, in water form, pull what it needs from whatever cannabis plant to deliver the performance you're talking about. Is that kind of pie in the sky, or is that around the corner?
It's, I got to tell you, microfluidics, the devices currently exist for a variety of different microfluidic applications, sensors, testing blood samples, testing breast milk samples. I mean, there's all kinds of uses for microfluidic devices today. The challenge has been the overall cost of these devices. They're made of silicone, or they're made of glass, or they're made of a PDMS plastic, these chips, and have little pumps and impellers, and they have little motors, and so it can get really expensive for these devices to be in the consumer marketplace for things like cannabis. So we're working on a variety of different technologies that are much, much cheaper. And so we've been exploring devices that are as simple as paper. Paper is a wonderful transport mechanism. And so for us, we're looking at this future of paper microfluidics as being a foundational area of our technology. And I'm able to talk about it because we've already filed patents. We're filing patents on a variety of different technologies, one of which is the paper microfluidics piece for cannabinoids. And so someday, we really hope that this will be something that drives down the cost of not only devices or delivery mechanisms for these cannabinoids, but also when this becomes a medicine, an affordable medicine for people across the U.S. and across the globe, this will be really important for places like Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, mainland Asia, and India and China, where people can't afford those devices because they live on less than $1 a day. Having an ability to get medicine in a way that is predictable, dosable, effective, but really cheap, I think is a big part of the future. And so for us, we're not looking at it strictly from the perspective of monetary gain. I think we have a strong core or the ethos of the company is trying to do the right thing. And so we consider ourselves social entrepreneurs. Yes, of course, we want to make money, but we also want to have a positive social impact. And that is something from the outset we decided we wanted to do as a company, and that's why we're developing this tech.
Okay. Could you see microfluidics, the device, servicing its clients in the form of paper? Or
yeah, you sure could. They most certainly could.
Okay.
And therein lies, I think, the opportunity for that kind of optionality and flexibility. If you can figure out the device side, then you can have it dosed into whatever you want, whether it be onto a piece of paper, whether it be onto a mint, whether it be into your mouth, whether it be into your, however you want to. There's lots of, once you have a dose then how that dose gets administered, there's a lot of flexibility around that.
Gotcha. Interesting. We talked about the cannabis, excuse me, in cannabis there's the entourage effect, essentially how compounds work together to create the desired effect. And you know, cannabinoids is essential to that, which is different than your conventional drug. If I take an ibuprofen, it solves my headache. If I take a pill, I know it has a direct correlation. So with the entourage effect, there's a layer of complexity, and I'm wondering, is that an obstacle, or is there a positive to that? Because it seems like it makes our work harder.
It does. It's a tremendous obstacle, but boy, it is a tremendous opportunity. And you really, I think, nailed it when you said, you know, aspirin fixes your headache. You know, Ambien helps you go to bed. Benadryl helps your allergies. It's like a single molecule fixes a thing, but that's not how nature works.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really how the human body really works when you think about the complex processes of biochemistry in the body and the brain. And a good example of that is a runner's high. There's no pill you can take to get a runner's high. That is a result of an incredibly complex series of chemical reactions happening in the brain and other parts of the human body. And so cannabis operates in a similar way where, like you said, the entourage effect, it's the effect of all these different compounds on the brain and other main systems of the body called the endocannabinoid system, which is almost like a major routing system in the human body and in the brain. And that's why cannabis has all these wonderful effects it's essentially cannabinoids are interacting with the endocannabinoid system, which exists in the brain, in the intestines, in parts of other major organs in the human body. And the cannabinoids are interacting with these receptors, turning them on and off, which affects all kinds of different systems in the human body. And that's why you see these beneficial effects on things like pain relief, anti-anxiety, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, you know, sleep, insomnia. Cannabinoids are interacting with a significant human neurological and biological system. So the entourage effect has a tremendous there is a tremendous opportunity for beneficial effects. Understanding with precision how it's working, no one really knows right now. So therein lies the challenge we're facing, but the opportunity is so big around understanding these complex chemical processes in the body and the brain that it's going to get figured out at some point. And to bring in something totally unrelated, machine learning, now that machine learning is becoming such an advanced field, the ability for computers and programs and algorithms to figure out and begin to sort of piece together this biological Sudoku that's happening in the brain, I think will lead to leaps and bounds of our understanding of multi-molecule therapy. And so at some point someday, aspirin will not become the preferred pain relief. Maybe it won't. Maybe there's going to be some set of molecules and some combination that works specifically for your body that is personalized, tailored healthcare. And I think that's where cannabis is like that first glimmer of hope as to what individualized multi-molecule therapy could look like in the form of medical marijuana.
Okay. Do you think the payoff could also be the fact that it's a plant as opposed to you know, a pill, which is a complex compound of artificial chemicals, that the payoff could be potentially less side effects once we get to the understanding of what they can and can't do?
Yeah, I mean, there is no what's called LD50 for cannabis, or there's no lethal dose for cannabis, right? So there is no toxic overload in the body. You know, there's a joke by one of my favorite comedians, Cat Williams. He says, boy, if you take too much aspirin, that's your last headache. It's a joke, but it's true. You take too much aspirin, it will kill you. There is no lethal overdose for cannabinoids. The hypothetical lethal overdose, I think somebody was trying to do the math on what would it take to actually hypothetically kill you. No one's ever died from cannabis. And the math was you'd have to smoke 40,000 joints in 15 minutes to die, or eat 10.2 million edibles in 15 minutes to overdose. It's just impossible. That is physically impossible to do so. And so that's why it's such an opportunity for pharmaceutical companies and companies like Deep Cell investigating and interrogating the plant, because it won't kill you. Even if you overdose on it, it's not going to have an effect that can end your life. In stark contrast to, say, opioids, which were in the news quite a bit recently. And I think what you're seeing now is as this opioid epidemic is ravaging the country, you're seeing a highly correlated rise in the interest in medical marijuana. Because I think people inherently begin to understand that this is something that is natural and can't kill you, Opioids are something synthetic and will kill you, get you addicted and will kill you. And so,
Right.
I think the multi-molecule therapy, the things we're talking about now, are really, really important for human health in the future.
Let's segue to the future, Kelly. Where do you see the opportunities as well as the challenges?
It has been challenging. I'd say it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, I think there's a lot of curiosity and interest in the industry, and I think people I think a lot of people have an open mind to what the future could look like in terms of a real mature industry with adult supervision, right? That's not necessarily how it is completely today. But I'd say that the challenge has been on the capital side, the capital markets are terrified of cannabis. And I think rightfully so, because of the ever-present threat of banking regulation, the inability to bank, the freezing of assets that could be done by the DEA or the IRS. And so I think the larger buckets of capital, some of them are taking the risk and jumping in. You're seeing funds like the MacArthur Fund, Blackshire Capital. There's a bunch of other, Casa Verde Capital, which is Snoop Dogg's venture firm, who's invested in things like Reddit and Robinhood and Slack. So you're seeing sophisticated investors participate in this industry, but they're few and far between relative to the size of the capital pools that exist investing in other risky industries. But herein, I think, lies the opportunity in that huge challenge. Once the federal government gives the indication this market is moving towards legalization, whether that be rescheduling or descheduling cannabis, whether that be an indication from the DEA that they're not going to prosecute, you'll see risk capital move into the space very, very quickly. And the valuations that currently exist for cannabis companies, you can stick a zero behind them because there just aren't that many operators who are compliant and sophisticated. There's just very few management teams and real companies for that capital to go into. So I think you're going to see an explosion in interest at some point, and you're going to see valuations also explode on the upside as a result. And we hope, obviously, we hope to be one of the beneficiaries of that. I think I've always gotten these two things confused. Inevitable and imminent don't mean the same thing. I think that's inevitable, but it doesn't mean it's imminent.
Okay. Tell me, what have you been surprised with in this industry? Or in other words, if I were opening, I've got an idea, carving out a segment in the cannabis space, what would you advise me? What are some things that I need to be aware of that may not be so obvious?
This industry still is, I think, maturing, and that's the nicest euphemism I can make for there is mistrust, there's distrust, there's paranoia, and I think it's almost like, I don't mean to make light of this, but it's almost like PTSD for cannabis operators who've operated under the sort of the threat of ever-present threat of prosecution. I think you're seeing that begin to slowly shift, but conditioning takes time to reverse, right? So I think as you're seeing people from other industries migrate into the cannabis industry, like myself and other of our partners, there's a different, I think, cultural pull that happens on some of these, I think, more paranoid operators in the industry. And so I think it's taken longer to build relationships than I had anticipated. I had sort of just expected that dollars and cents will reign, but really trust is a major component of this industry. And relationships are a big part of this industry. And so I think to people getting into the industry, take the time to get to know your partners, take the time to be transparent, and picking the right kind of partner, I think, is critical to success or failure. And then also I think and then on the market side, the thing that surprised us the most, it's the interest of the 50-plus crowd. That is the fastest growing segment of cannabis, and that has surprised the heck out of everyone.
No kidding. I wouldn't have guessed that.
It is. It's by far the fastest growing segment. And I think now that I've been in the industry, it makes a little bit of sense as I've begun to learn. I think seniors are looking for alternatives to, expensive, addictive, potentially liver damaging, body damaging, medicines, and they're looking for something that's all natural pain relief. And I think cannabis represents a unique opportunity. And for some, they just don't care anymore. They're like, I'm not going to get fired. I don't care about ridicule. I just want to feel better. I want to be able to go to bed. And so I think sleep has, I'm telling you, I mean, I cannot tell you how many people of my older friends or people that I've met just in my travels in this industry who are 50 plus who said, I just want to go to bed, man. But show me a product that will help me go to sleep. because sleep is
Right.
such an important part of quality of life. And that just dawned on me like, oh, that makes sense. If your back is hurting, or if you're coughing all night, or if you have some sort of chronic pain, you can't go to bed. And so cannabis provides kills two birds with one stone, pain and sleep. Man, it's made such a difference for, I think, people who deal with chronic pain, because they're like, I can just go to bed now. I can go to bed, I wake up, I'm energized, I feel better, I'm happier. Therein lies, I think, a tremendous opportunity on the therapeutic side for seniors to market cannabis to those consumers.
Okay, which kind of feeds into my next question. I mean, Kelly, you're an investor, and you have carved out a segment in the cannabis space, specializing on ingredients, which is fascinating. But I'm curious, where would you invest in the cannabis space, or what kinds of companies do you see the biggest growth opportunities? Would it be what you just mentioned on therapy?
Oh, boy. I'd be investing in hemp.
Okay. Not surprised.
Why
do you think?
The way I look at this industry is I sort of liken it to the gold rush. In the gold rush, some people struck it rich. Most blew the money in, town bars and other extracurricular activities. The people who made money were the people who sold picks and shovels. It was the Nordstroms who sold boots and overalls. It was the infrastructure players who made a lot of money at the time. And so I'm not interested in extract companies with like extraction rigs. Excuse me. I'm interested in upstream opportunities around agriculture as it relates to hemp production, or some of the processing companies that will be doing the hemp processing for purified CBD. I'll be interested in looking at distribution companies who do distribution of these products down the road once national the prohibition falls. I guess I'm also interested, I'm really interested, although it's very, very early, in the synthetic biology aspect of cannabis. I fundamentally believe that someday we will not be growing the plant, it'll be brewed in fermentation vessels. I'm talking about microbial production of these compounds. There's nothing that prevents us today from doing that except for investments of capital, some genetics, and the licenses to do so.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is instead of growing the plant under lights or in large farms, it'll be almost like brewing beer someday, where you turn a spigot and out comes your stream of cannabinoids that you can then purify. Not too dissimilar from how pharmaceuticals are manufactured today.
I like it. Kelly, this is fantastic. I know I've taken a lot of your time. Could we let our viewers know how they can learn more about Deep Cell and what you guys are doing?
Sure. They can just go to deepcell.industries. Just type deepcell.industries into their URL, and they can find our website and learn a little more. They can go to rubyedibles.com to learn about the Ruby product, and they can go on a journey from there.
Fantastic. Kelly, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for such a thoughtful interview. You have great perspective, and it's really valued here. And thank you so much. Can we do this again sometime?
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, have a great trip down there in California, and we'll talk to you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
That was it, everyone. See you next time.